In our last section, you talked about this equation and how to actually graph that without making a t-chart. And if you had it in this form, it ended up being, I thought anyway, and I hope that you thought too, pretty simple. All you had to do was take what the y-intercept was, where it crossed the y-axis. So let's say that that was plus 2, starting at plus 2 or starting at positive 2 on the y-axis, and then you just had to use the slope to figure out how many up and how many over you had to go. So let's say it was 1/2 x, that would be positive, so we know it was going this direction. We go up 1 and then over 2, so it looked like that. That's pretty simple. What I'm going to show you today is a lot of times you will see these lines in what we call standard form. And there's nothing wrong with standard form, it's just standard form is really difficult to graph. It's really difficult to graph. So we've got to be able to figure out some way to change standard form to the y-intercept slope form so it is actually easy to graph. And I'm going to kind of show you how to do that today. And it's really not that difficult. We're going to pull some from our knowledge on solving equations where we do something to one side, we do it to the other side. We do opposite things, so if you add, you subtract. If you multiply, you divide, those kind of opposites. And I think we'll get it figured out here. So the first one I want to show you looks like this. Okay? And our goal is to get it into this form right here. We want the y to be by itself on this side. And that doesn't turn out to be all that difficult, but once we get this figured out, I think you get it. So our goal is to keep this y over here on this side. Okay, I want to keep this over here, meaning I've got to get this 3x on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow the principles that we've been doing, and to get rid of this, I'm just going to subtract 3x. That will cancel out. And then over here, I will also subtract 3x. Okay, and that would just be that because I can't do anything with those two because they're different things. Okay, so now my problem looks like this. 4y equals, and I'm actually going to put this minus 3x first because we want our slope. I think it's easier if it's first in our equation rather than having the y-intercept first, just because that's what you're used to. So I'll just put negative 3x because that's negative, and then I'll just put my minus 12 there. Okay, we're almost done. The last part is I've got to get this y completely by itself. So I've got this equation down here, so I just have a y equals. So that means I've got to get rid of this times 4 that's attached to it. And just like we've done before, the opposite of a times 4 is going to be a division of 4. So I'm just going to do divided by 4 here, cancels out, and then I'm going to do divide by 4 on the other side. Now, here's where it gets slightly tricky because before when we did this, when you divided, you only had one thing that you needed to divide by on the other side. Now we've got 2, and you have to divide everything on this side by 4. So we'll do that. That won't be that tricky though. Okay, so that means I have to divide this by 4, and I have to divide this by 4. So basically what we're left with is y equals, now negative 3 divided by 4, since that's the slope, we might as well just keep that like that. Okay, I could divide it out and get 0.75, that would be fine, or negative 0.75, but it's better to keep it like this because if it's in this form, then we know, well, I have to go up 3 and then I have to go over 4. So we'll just keep it like that. Okay. X. And then over here, let's divide this one out so we know where we need to start at, because this is the y-intercept part of it. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. Now we have an equation that we can work with here. We have all the parts that we needed from this one. We've got the y equals, we've got the slope out in front of the x, and then we've got our y-intercept. And remember, this is, it always says plus b in our equation when we start, but depending on whether it's going to be positive or negative, it might be plus or minus. So this should look familiar to you, and this you should be able to graph. We're not going to graph these in this section right now. We're going to wait till the next section to actually do that. All right, next up here. we've got x minus 3y equals negative 9. This is in standard form. We want to get it into y-intercept form, slope form. That's this down here. That's what you're used to. So what we need to do is we need to get the y by itself. So let's start by getting the x on the other side. So let's take a positive x. If you want to stick that 1 in front of there, that would be perfectly fine. So we'll do minus 1x, cancels out. We'll do minus 1x on the other side. Okay. So now we're left with negative 3y equals negative 9 minus 1x. So now, and actually I'm going to write that the other way. I'm going to write it so we've got the slope part of it first. So I'll go negative 1x minus 9. And now we just need to go through and I need to get rid of this. And remember, that's attached to that y, which means it's multiplication. So the opposite is going to be division. So I need to divide by negative 3. Okay. Dividing by negative 3 is going to cancel that out, leaving me with just y equals. Okay. So if I divide this by negative 3 and I divide this by negative 3, okay, we're just going to keep this as the fraction since we're dealing with slope anyways. Now the key here is you've got negative 1 and negative 3. If you divide those, everybody should know that that would be a positive number because a negative divided by a negative would be a positive. So I'm just going to write that as 1/3 x because it should be positive because we have two negatives. And then over here, we should be able to divide that out and get a whole number. So if I do negative 9 divided by negative 3, that's actually positive 3. So we would end with plus 3. Now we've got our y equals. We've got our slope. This would be a positive slope. So we'd have to go up 1 and then over 3. And then our starting point would be 3 on the y-axis. All right, next one here. We got our standard form, which we don't really want. We want to change this to our y-intercept form here, or our slope form. So we need to get the y by itself. Now, if you see this one, I'm going to start off by always putting this 1 in front of there. I think that's really helpful. So I need to get this by itself on a side, so I'm going to have to get rid of the 10x. Opposite would be minus 10x. Oops. There we go. Do the same thing the other side, negative 10x. Can't combine those two together because this one doesn't have an x on it. So let's bring everything down and see what we have so far here. Now I've got negative 1y equals, I'm going to put this part first because that's our slope and that needs to go first. It doesn't have to, but I just think it's easier just since we've worked like that just to keep it like that so you're not confused. So you always know, well, slope's the first number, where it crosses the y-axis is the second number. So we'll do negative 10x minus 10. So now all I need to do is get y by itself, meaning I got to get rid of this guy right here. That is a times negative 1. So the opposite is going to be divided by negative 1. That will cancel out. So then if I divide by, and I'm just putting this slash here because slash is the same thing as division, divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. So now I have y equals, now I can actually, if you want to leave the, okay, this is going to be positive because there's two negatives, okay? If you just want to write this as 10 because it comes out evenly, 10 divided by 1 is 10, you can do that as fine. You just have to understand that when we actually do the slope, you'll need that 1 underneath there when we do the slope, but if you just want to leave it like this, that's fine. And then if we go over here and do our negative 10 divided by negative 1, that is also just positive 10, so we'd have plus 10. There would be my final answer. I have my y-intercept starting at 10, and then my slope is up 10, and then this is positive, so it would actually be up 10, right 1 when we graph these. All right, take a look at this one. Now this one, I'm going to tell you, I'm looking at this one, this is going to be easy because the y doesn't have anything connected to it. So as soon as we get this 5x on the other side, we're golden on this one. Okay, so I'll do minus 5x to get rid of that because our goal is to make it look like this. We'll do minus 5x on the other side. Can't combine those together. So I've just got y equals, I'm going to write this part of it first because that's the slope, negative 5x, and we'll do a minus 10. That should be our answer right there because we've got nothing attached to this y. I mean, there's a 1 there, but that's okay. It doesn't matter if there's a 1 there because it's the same thing. So we have everything exactly how we want it for this one. So this would be your slope-intercept form. This one would be ready to graph. Last one before you try a couple of these on your own here. And again, you should start being able to see the process here, and hopefully you're starting to see, this connects pretty closely to our solving equation stuff. So let's take a look at this one here. This one is almost already where it needs to be at. The only thing is, because we're real close to having this, we've got the y equals, we've got the slope, we've got the y-intercept. So actually we've got most of it. But the thing is, the y is not by itself on a side. So we still need to get rid of this 2. Okay? And remember, this 2, if it's attached to the y, is times 2. So then we need to do a division of 2. So that's going to cancel that out. So we're left with y equals. We'll do divided by 2 and divided by 2 here. Negative 3 divided by 2. And since that's the slope, let's just keep it the same. Negative 3 over 2. Because that's easy to work with. We need 2 numbers for the slope anyway, so we'll just keep it like that. And then we'll do plus 18 divided by 2 is 9. So now we have all the parts we need. Y equals, here's your slope, here's your y-intercept. All right, we've gone through that process here. You've had 5 examples. If you still have questions before you start these, I would recommend asking them now, would be fine. Here are 2 that I would like you to try on your own just to see how it works out, just to see how you do here. Okay? Take your time, work these problems out, come back to the video when you're done and see how you did.